Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to do a review of Disney's Jungle Cruise Adventure game. This is a game for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up. It takes about 45 to 60 minutes. And the premise, which, strangely enough, can only really be realized by looking at the bottom of the board game map, is that Alberta Falls, the owner of the Jungle Cruise ride, has tasked or commissioned you guys as captains, skippers of the ship. You'll be taking a group of passengers on a boat down through the Jungle Cruise ride. In the end, your goal is to arrive first and arrive best. You will be dealing with certain perils along the way, and one of the 4 groups of families that are being transported are considered caretakers, who will take over for the Jungle Cruise ride, and they will be worth extra points if you bring them to the end of the ride by the game's conclusion. Let's take a look at what's in the box.
Okay, in Jungle Cruise Ride, you're going to have this very, very nicely drawn map of the Jungle Cruise ride itself. You will notice there is a finite, singular, unidirectional pathway through the jungles of peril and danger, with the occasional crossroads or crosswater that you're going to have to decide whether to go to the left or forward. As you go across, you're going to run into outposts, and these outposts are going to have tremendous, rich, delicious goodies for you to, otherwise known as goods. I'll leave those out there so you can kind of see the highlighted map. Also, there are these letters, and these letters are clues that tell you which of the 4 families in this game of passenger are the ones that are going to be considered, worthy to take over and run the Jungle Cruise adventure. Then you're going to have 1 roll dice. This is how you traverse the map. And then 3 danger dice. They're basically 50% chance on each one of being hit or miss. And then you have these, at the end of the game, you get tips. So as boats make their way here, they're going to get tips for each turn that they're here while they wait for the rest of the Jungle Cruise ships to arrive and catch up. That's basically it for that. Everybody gets a ship, and on your ship you're going to have your own set of members. Now there are 4 families, and they're noted by the icons. You have 4 different families here. And one of those families is going to give you extra bonus points at the end of the game for as many family members as you have in your boat. Everyone gets a specialty card, and that specialty card is a skipper specialty that gives you an extra bonus that other players do not possess. Also a warning flare. This is effectively a re-roll your dice opportunity if you get a particularly bad dice. There are 4 sections to the boat. You have the front, the center here. You have the port side, left, starboard side, right, center section, which is generally, and by general I mean almost exclusively, considered safe for any passengers in it. And you have the rear of the boat, where you have three units in the rear, 3 to the left, 3 to the right, 3 in the center. You are theoretically the invisible skipper that's at the helm of the ship. You wouldn't want to be in the back because you wouldn't want to give anyone a stern lecture. And that's about it, other than lost and found tokens, which are used to collect goods. You can have up to 3 different kinds of goods that you collect, as well as passengers, because at the end of your journey, who doesn't want it to say you did good? And then each of these 3 types will be worth victory points at the end of the game. Finally, you have danger cards. Danger cards are cards that give you a little bit of flavor text, a tad bit of humor, and by a tad I mean dad jokes or tad jokes. And you have each one of these is kind of thematically represented with some artwork, a name, but most importantly, the amount of damage and danger that you're in, and which section of your boat will experience damage from that danger, should that be the card you choose to use. And that's it. That's all the pieces in the game. Let's start playing an example of gameplay. All right, player 1, let's roll. First off, on your turn, you can rearrange your boat. Now, at the beginning of the game, there's precious little reason to do so without having the foreknowledge that you will have after several games. In any event, you're going to want to focus your boat on making sure that the most important family members are safe as they can be from, well, unknown dangers that will come upon you. So, roll the dice. 2, All right, we start with our boat here. Yellow boat starts at the starting spot, goes 1 space, 2 space. Ooh, danger. All right. Once there, you can take an action. If you're at an outpost, you have different options than you would if you're at a clue position. And if you're not at either of those, you're at sort of a nav point, per se, along the river, then you take one of these lost and found tiles. And it is a good, which would be great, except your boat's full. So, not very helpful. And we don't have any lost passengers, so there you go. Now that we've gone all the way up there, we need to regale with tales of the dangers that we faced. So we take 4 cards, we always take 4 cards. And because we only drove 2 spots, we only have to resolve 2 of these cards. Now, anything that's sideways like this is just a special sort of out-of-the-way card that has to be resolved above all the others. Rescue a lost passenger, which would be awesome, but we don't have any. Everybody still have their passengers. We just started. So that's one of the cards we can use. We move 2 spaces, we have to resolve 2 cards. This makes us roll 3 danger dice. This makes us roll 3 danger dice, and this makes us roll 2 danger dice. Gosh, what should I do? I'm going to take the bathing pool and use that, and note that the instructions say you are supposed to read off the clever joke. The secluded elephant pool has never before been seen by civilized man. And looking at everyone on this boat, it still hasn't. Okay, we roll 2 dice. No hits. We have survived this perilous, treacherous portion of the Jungle Cruise ride. And that's it. That's the end of turn for yellow boat. Now we have blue boat. Blue boat rolls a 3, a 1, and a 2, and a... No, that's the Lawrence Welk game. Okay. Once again, we are at a navigation point, so we're going to grab one of these lost and found tiles. Another good isn't going to do us any good. And now we treacherize the danger. We've gone 3, so we're going to have to resolve 3 of these 4 cards. Oops. Pretend that didn't happen. Pay no attention. King Cobra's, African Veld, Loading Dock, Crash Landing. Well, we have 3 cards. This 50-50 chance of danger. I like that. 50-50 chance. 66 something or other % chance of danger. Blech. Everything's filled on the boat. We have no idea of anything yet. So, let's just do the King Cobras, man. It's just a snake. We can outrun snakes, right? Alright. Then, roll this. Yay, we got away with it. Roll this. Ooh, damage to the back of the boat. One of these suckers has to go. Ah! Lost passenger, wandering in the jungle, wondering what to do with his life. Alright, and then, King Cobras. No hits. So that was actually a relatively safe journey for yellow boat as well. Now, we're going to roll for yellow. And back to yellow again. Yellow rolls a... Ooh, yellow rolls a 4. No, really, it rolled a 4, I swear. Alright, 1, 2, oops, we're at an outpost. We have to stop. No matter what, we have to stop. This is a gate. This is a gating procedure. Now, we're here, we have an opportunity. We can either use the outpost and collect a good, which isn't going to do us much good on our turn, because we have a full boat, or we can take a lost passenger and put him on our boat. Again, we don't have any lost passengers. Oh, sorry. Did I do that wrong? I think I did. Ugh. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Alright, so now we don't really have much in the way of opportunities, so we're not going to worry about it. So, yay, yep, well. But we still need to encounter the danger. Once again, we only moved 3 spaces, even though we rolled a 4, because we stopped at the outpost. So we're going to flip over these 4, and we're going to decide for ourselves how dangerous and treacherous this could be. We have to pick 3 of these cards no matter what. Gosh. Oh man, those King Cobras. But the dense bamboo, the crash landing, and the butterflies. Let's do that. Alright, so crash landing. Did we hit? Nope. Butterflies. Hit. So we have to take damage to the left of our boat. So this, we're going to knock this sucker out too. And finally, dense bamboo. Oh, whew, we survived. That is awesome. Okay, so that's the way it's going to go. I'm going to actually fast forward a little bit because this is really everything you know about the game. you now know how to do. There's very little I haven't shown you already, other than the specialties of the ferry boats, which, for example, when I'm stopping at an outpost, which I did, I can take a cargo and rescue a lost passenger. So that's something I forgot to use, but that's a special ability your boat can use. Now, why do we have these here? We have these because as we make our way here, we have a decision point to make. If we decide to just keep on going, we're not going to be able to know what the secret is. But let's assume that we have moving here. We then reveal and say to ourselves, ooh, the temple. This is a case of not information that tells you what's not going to happen, because the special family here is not going to be revealed to the end of the game. We know that that special family is not anybody with a temple icon. So they're not going to be worth as many points. With that knowledge, the yellow boat can now go forward and be rescuing passengers a little bit more strategically. They can rearrange their boat to go, well, I don't need these as much, but I definitely want to protect any of the others that might actually still be part of the family that get me the most points. And that's it. Now, what you risk instead is that instead of being able to go 1, 2, and just keep going on to try to get there first and get the tips, instead, you have to go 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5. So you're putting yourself behind the other boaters by learning those clues. And so it's up to you to decide whether you want that knowledge or whether you want to risk to take your chances on not obtaining that knowledge. Plus, you can also watch other players and see how they configure their boats in an attempt to try to guess what that information is. So either way, it's perfect information that you're trying to use and utilize in order to have the most points at the end of the game. That's it. There's not a whole lot more to it. I'm actually going to just fast forward to a later version of the game and show you the ending before we get to my final thoughts. So as the game winds down, as you follow your way through these 7 levels of the Candy Cane Forest, so to speak, we're going to show you a little bit about the end game. 1, let's pretend that was a 3. Travel to the rest, get to the finish, do the usual. Once you get here, then you get the most valuable token. This is worth victory points. It's worth 3. At this point, it's now a race to keep the person in charge in front from getting all of these extra tokens every turn, because that's all your turn's going to be. It's grabbing token, grabbing token, grabbing token. In the meantime, and let's just kind of speed this up. 1, 2, 3, stop here, outpost, grab a good, etc., etc. Go through the danger. Let's just keep going. And it on the next turn, hey, you get this, and then roll again, and everyone kind of tries to make their way in to the finish. At the finish time, that is when you finally score all of the points for the various things that you've done during the game. You score by checking for the caretaker, basically who won. So basically we look over and we go, okay, Cruz isn't it, the Lions family isn't it, the Temple family isn't it. So obviously if someone had gone through like Blue Boat did, they'd go, the Denial family is the bomb. So any boat that has the Denial family in it is going to get 5, 10, 15 points just for that alone. Same here, 5, 10, 15, 20 points. And that's that. Now everyone else, every other passenger that didn't make it, is going to get 3 points. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Yay. 3, 6, 9. There you go. Each sets of cargo, then you look at the cargo and go, okay, well, if you have all 3 sets of individual cargo, say if this happened, you would get a whopping 10 points. If not, if you have 2 sets, well, it's worth 4 points. If you just have 1, they're worth a good each. And that's it. That's basically the end of the game. Then you count up that with the rest of the points. Whoever has the most points wins and is going to get special favors and care shined down from above by the new Denial family that's going to take care of the crews while the original crews members are on vacation. Or at least that's how the story goes. All right, let's get to my thoughts.
All right, so it's time to talk about my final thoughts on Disney's Jungle Cruise adventure game. We're going to go over the pros first because I think that's probably the most apropos thing to do. The board and the pieces have a rich stylistic artwork to them. The tiles, the boats, they're all evocative of the Disney Jungle Cruise ride experience. It's definitely a joy point. It's a very accurate rendering of the Jungle Cruise ride itself, replete with all the details and regions of the real experience were you to be at Disneyland experiencing it. There's a very low bar to entry. It's like the ride, you can simply just step into the boat and pretty much you have what you need to know to be able to play with ease. I definitely think it's a high point that there was the trademark Captain Skipper pun, dad joke kind of humor going on. It translates over into this game from the actual ride on the cards as they're played. Honestly, I have no real complaints about it in a decorative or ornamental sense. Now let's get into the cons. So it's probably a bad sign in your game when you as a player come to a fork in the river or road where you have a choice between two different paths. And in your mind, you're thinking, well, if I take this path instead of that path, the game will take longer. You know that's kind of a warning sign. And honestly, that's how I feel about this game in a lot of ways. The points in the game that should be expressly fun aren't. Let me give you a couple examples of that. The moving is not fun. It is luck. It is luck without input of any kind. You will go 1 to 4 spaces, or if you're close to an outpost, you will go whatever distance it takes to get there. That's it. That's all you have to do. That means that the game could take anywhere from 8 to 20 plus turns without you doing anything about it. Now, averaging out over multiple players, chances are it's going to be about in the middle of that. But there's no fun in that for me. The discovering was not fun. When you land on a spot in this game, you have a choice. If you're at an outpost, you grab a food tile, or you have a chance to rescue a passenger. If you're at a mail post, you have an opportunity to get one of the 3 pieces of information that will help you decide which passengers are more important by a little bit than others, and which could help you rearrange your boat. So that's probably the most interesting thing. If you wind up just on some spot along the river, and it doesn't really matter where, you grab a mystery tile, and what are those? Grab a good, rescue a passenger. The river is essentially meaningless in almost every interesting way. There's no crescendo, there's no buildup, there's no danger. It's literally a line graph that just happens to swirl around with some interesting artwork around it. And that's a real loss of potential of what could have been much more interesting, because the Jungle Cruise ride itself has very distinct regions in it with very distinct things going on that could have been an interesting way to develop and build up parallel suspense, or at least the impression of suspense. Big fail on that. Collecting, marginally fun. Your passengers are pretty generic. The only thing that matters to them is what icons are on them. Some of them have 2 icons, whatever, and understanding whether you have enough of the right family to get the extra bonus points. But otherwise, you're just picking them up wherever, however, in whatever fashion. If you lose a passenger, they go into a nebulous pool, and when it's time to pick up a passenger, you just pick a pool. If you have more information, you might pick a different one than another, but it's just they all go into the great boredom slot lost and found in the sky until you just grab them out and put them back on your ship. There's no spatial thing. There's no, you're on the side of the river and someone coming after you can pick them up. Nothing like that. Nothing interesting in that regard. The secrets are not interesting. We'll get to that later. The goods seem out of place, but I understand why they're there. If you're really on this thing to try to entertain passengers and bring them down, the point of goods is it's a stretch. It's a big stretch. There's a game mechanic aspect to it, I'm sure, which is basically a way to get alternate point scoring. If you don't feel like you're going to do well in one regard, you can try and switch focuses to another regard to see if you can keep up. But the rationale and the mechanism is so obvious a corn dog could see behind the curtain. Risk reward, not fun. Marginal planning of where you put your passengers, yes, that's an aspect, because You want to kind of distribute out, and that's probably the most interesting part, if there was an interesting part, is where to put the passengers, but zero real planning that's going to affect, because you don't know anything that's going to happen danger-wise, and so you're just kind of like some mitigation, but it's always mitigating against the unknown, which is a huge pet peeve of mine. Secrets, they're a long way out. If you decide to go get a secret to decide which of the four families isn't the one you care about, you're gonna give up 2, 3, 4 extra spaces, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 2 or 3 of movement, and that could be literally 3 extra turns if you roll a 1 or not, and you're going to get behind, and it's a question of, and in some ways it doesn't matter because you don't have to finish the race. Eventually you'll auto finish if at the risk of losing out on tips at the end, but it still just isn't that interesting. It makes a game that's at turtle speed a game that's at two-legged turtle speed, and that just doesn't do it for me. Others can draft off your secret info, so if you care enough to go be a detriment, like basically put yourself behind the 8 ball, then other people can watch how you rearrange your ship every turn and go, well, he's putting all of this icon in the safe place, maybe I should too. That's supposed to be a great strategy, but it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Danger management is incredibly unfun to me. The ride itself, when I took it as a young child, was a campy experience predicated on the illusion of danger. The illusion of danger is important, and it doesn't work in this game. You have very little interesting decisions, if anything interesting decisions, and pretty much everything they tell you to do is screamed out at you to do as the single way to do it. If you have a danger card with 1 die, if you have a danger card with 1 die, that's almost always your best choice, unless you have an empty part of your boat where it's not going to matter. But adding 2 dice, whatever, 3 dice, you know what you're going to do. You have to grab 4 cards. You have to figure out what the best move is. It's made for you. There's very little that's left for you to do. It's just not. The cards are generic, and that drives me nuts, because all of the fun of the game is all the different themes that you go through during the Jungle Cruise ride. Safari Camp, it isn't relevant. Pride of Lions, who cares? There's nothing about it that's distinguishable or interesting. If I run into a baboon family, it's no different than if I run into some other 2-danger African veldt. There's nothing. Yes, there's artwork on the card, and there's a pun, and they really push at you to say, if you're going to do this, you have to read the pun, because that's just fun part of the game. If you have to read the flavor text for someone in playing your game to get it, you ain't got it. And that's a big problem for me, and one that I think just really diminishes the value as a game for this title. Every place where this game was poised to shine in typical Prospero Hall fashion, it just stumbles. And I know that it has an eye on making approachability important for people, because this is going to be in department stores. It has the name recognition of Disney Jungle Cruise, etc. I get it. Complexity reduction is paramount in those kinds of games. But stripping away the interesting decisions, the risk, the reward, the payoff, the danger, the fun, taking it all away, basically you're left behind with a shell of a game that's 99% It's a Small Word After All and 0% Indiana Jones. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. They're not real positive, but lest you think I'm not a positive man, now, as one of my historical heroes once said, let me show you a more excellent way. Last year, my daughter went to Zambia on a mission trip. She was rerouted from Kenya because of heavy rioting. And so we ended up in Zambia. Now, as part of my charm while she was gone, I went ahead and looked for games that had a theme, and lo and behold, Zambia, which has come out, or Zambezi, the Zambezi River, came out in 2014, and I bought it, and not a well-known publisher, not very good rules, but I thought, you know what, why not? It's something with the Zambia theme, and how many Zambia-themed games are you going to buy in your lifetime? This is a game also with its flaws, and it's a bit too long, but let me explain to you what the premise is. You are racing down the Zambezi River. You're hoping to get to the finish line first with your boat and your passengers intact and not running out of fuel. Sound kind of familiar? Yes. What about this game, Zambezi, outshines the newly released Jungle Cruise ride? Let me explain. First off, for movement, you draw animal cards, and choose from those animal cards how far you travel. You risk using extra fuel, which is a precious commodity you don't get to get restored very easily, to grab more animal cards in the hopes of being able to travel a little farther. If you get duplicate cards, 2 lions, 2 tigers, 2 bears, oh my, you can then double the amount of movement that you make, and that's all great because it gives you a range, a panorama of choices to let you decide whether you're moving safely will actually go less far but not put you in a dangerous spot, or move farther and risk the danger and take that risk upon yourself. You are in control to a degree of what you want to risk, what you ante up, what you want to put in the pot to decide how far ahead you want to go. And sometimes those gambles pay off and sometimes they don't. The other thing is you can use the cards of other players that just played also to kind of build up matches in pairs. Movement is interesting. Traversal is a big part of the draw. The other thing is where you land is also pivotal and important and has meaning. When you land on rocks, it will slow you down for the next turn. Not a terribly dire thing, but something to be annoying. But you might want to do that because if you take a different path, you might run into crocodiles. Now, crocodiles, they require you to use extra fuel, again, a precious commodity that you have to risk and time when you want to use it and when you want to hold back. You use the crocodiles or to get around them, but either way, you're making choices based on danger that is both perceived, predictable, and can be accounted for in your preparations. When you land on a space with another player, you both take damage and lose passengers. You lose all your passengers, you're done. You're grounded. When you lose all your fuel, you're done. You're grounded. Lots of interesting risk there. The risk is in your hands as the captain. If you land on a landing stage equivalent to an outpost, you have a choice. You can have goodies, which are worth points, or you could basically recover oil or recover fuel, which is great. But you don't have to stop there, but you might want to stop there. You, again, get to choose. These interesting choices make traversal of the river really interesting. The map matters. The other part is if you are kind of getting behind or you have opportunities or you're just not in an optimal spot, you have a photography mode that's kind of like the goods that Jungle Cruise has, but much more interesting, where you're collecting animal cards in sequential, and you can have one photography collection, and those are going to add points at the end of the game for whoever had the best collection. Again, this is not a perfect game. As a matter of fact, there are places it's a little crude and it's a little long, but out of the gate, you already feel more of a Jungle Cruise adventure with tension-filled decisions, opportune moments when you can strike, and the ever-present possibility of large swings that can aid or abet or detain and abut your journey. And honestly, side by side, teaching these is equal. I have ended up teaching both of these games to audiences of young kids, casual gamers, and a couple of us grognards. It's identical because I read the rules on both, but honestly, it is. So this might be why Jungle Cruise was a little bit less enthralling to me, is because having played Zambezi and having seen that there's an essence and a kernel of really interesting gameplay for what is effectively a roll and write or a card play and write game, there is a better way. Now let's get to my conclusions. So in conclusion, I'm going to approach the final thoughts in two different ways. There's specimen number one, which are the types of gamers who are social or play a game with kids or who are kids. The once-in-a-while gamer who pulls it out to have something to do in between the chatter and hubbub of party life. And I would say that for them, this is simple fun. It's approachable by a very general audience, and more so than many gamers' games. There's a visual polishness to it that I think will attract non-gamers and light gamers and not overwhelm them in any degree at all. And that's really the sweet spot for this game, in my opinion. Now we're on to specimen two, and that's gamers who play games and want tight gameplay to go along with all of the snaz and razz that goes with games. And in this case, I have to say the Jungle Cruise adventure game is an absolute keeper. It's keeper for me, because it's ornamental and decorative, and that's really the value of it. Part of it's because Prospero Hall, which is a group of that's been creating games in the last couple of years, just all over the map, just pumping them out like mad. They've done some amazing things as a group. They have truly, but they're truly like the box of chocolates that life is purportedly like. They've done Horrified, which is the best co-op game I've ever played. They've done Jaws, Trapper Keeper, Villainous, Top Gun, all top-notch games that would surprise me. This is definitely something I think either was meant to be not for true, like for gamers really, if they knew any alternative like Zambezi, or it just didn't quite meet. Yeah, it struck out at the plate for me. I mean, if you want a game that's cruise interest, or you want a game that waterfalls for, or you want a game that's so bright its daddy calls its son, this ain't it. Crappy puns aside, if the movie that comes out is anything like this game, it's going to bomb. It's a keeper for all the wrong reasons, but it definitely is something that I'm going to mod. I still feel like there are ways that I could make this game interesting, and I'm going to give it a shot. So that's not a really ringing endorsement. I wish I had something better. I'm definitely hoping that future entries by Prospero Hall are back up to the level of Horrified, which I highly recommend. But otherwise, the Disney's Jungle Snooze adventure game, it should have majored in business instead. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.